Hey everybody, this is Zach with Luck of the Draw. This is episode 2 of our Luck of the Draw hunting podcast. And this episode is sponsored by Artesian Wells and Garage in Jerome, Michigan. It happens to the best of us, especially around the holidays. Your car breaks down, you need work done, and you want somebody that you can trust and afford to get your vehicle back on the road. Call Levi at Artesian Wells Garage and Towing in Jerome, Michigan, to make sure that your car gets back on the road in an affordable, convenient, and timely manner. Make sure you tell them we sent you. Hey everybody, this is Zach with the Luck of the Draw and the Luck of the Draw podcast. This is episode number 2. Very excited to finally start getting some of these out. As I mentioned, very humble beginnings. But we're making some, improvements slowly but surely as we get our studio built. And this episode, we're going to have Tim Redding, our pro staff member, on board. It's been great to work with him so far, so I'm excited to sit down with him virtually since he's down in Tennessee and learn about him and a little bit about his baseball career, how he got into hunting, and some of his most memorable hunts. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out our show on Waypoint TV and Gen 7 Outdoors, where on our YouTube channel, we're going to have the podcast, of course, but we'll talk about our sponsors, some of their products and services, and of course, have some MLB players from the team and maybe some other outside MLB players, as well as other industry professionals in the hunting world like DNR and other TV show guys that I've gotten to know over the years. So you definitely don't want to miss it. If you want to get to know some of these awesome baseball players that I've been blessed to work with over the past few years and how they got into hunting and realize that they're just guys like the rest of us that love the outdoors, you definitely want to make sure you're subscribing to this podcast. So stick around. Big Tim is up next. Hey everybody, this is Zach with Luck of the Draw. This is episode 2 of our Luck of the Draw podcast. Very excited to have my friend and pro staffer, Big Tim Redding, here with me today. And when I say here with me, I mean virtually, because he's down in Tennessee. Tim, how's the weather down there? It sucks up here in Michigan.
Yeah, well, it sucked here today. We were battling tornado warnings today, being that we had last 2 days have been 65 degrees.
Okay.
So we had some severe storms come through. Fortunately for us, the tornado went 14 miles north of us, but it unfortunately for the area, it did do some damage on its route and went quite a bit of distance. So we ended up with just some lightning, thunder, rain, severe thunderstorm type weather. So we didn't have to take shelter or anything like that, but we were prepared. And being that we're dog sitting for our daughter and we have our own animals, it was going to be interesting to have cats and dogs in a closet. Yeah. When the cats don't like my daughter's dog all that much. So it would have been interesting to see which ones were going to be fighting for themselves if the house ended up going for a ride.
Yeah. No, I'm glad to hear that it passed you and you guys are safe. And my thoughts are with those who may have been impacted. The weather up here it's December the 9th, if I remember correctly. It's been a long day, but it was uncharacteristically warm up here. Had to be in the 50s today. Me and Zai were out hunting in the morning, hunting in the evening, and I was way overdressed this morning, sweating, getting in blind, and it's like, man. But
yeah, it's so weird. I remember those days when I lived up there and you get that Indian summer, when it should be prime harvesting or getting that last doe to fill the freezer type thing or help a family member out or a neighbor. And you're so used to bundling up and it's like, it's going to be 29 in the morning. So you're going to get dressed for what you do. And then by the time you come out of the blind, it's 50 and you're like,
right. No. And you hit the nail on the head, and I forgot you're a Michigan former resident, correct?
Yeah, for a dozen years, about an hour north of you.
Yeah, that's crazy, but yeah, it's been a weird season. I'm not a fan of the cold, even though I live in Michigan. I picked the wrong state to live, but I'll take every day without snow as a good day for me. So.
Yeah. Being from Western New York myself and living in Michigan, I hate being cold. I mean, if my fingers or my toes get cold, I'm pretty much useless in a stand or in a blind. So
Yeah.
either I have to have that little buddy going with the propane, or I need to be friends with somebody who's got a really nice tower blind that's well insulated and quiet. And but yeah, Tennessee has been a good move for the first 2 years for hunting. This year it's been quite a battle. So haven't seen the number of deer, haven't seen the number of bucks, and so I'm excited to try and finish the season strong. And I had a surprise we'll talk about more later on. So
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, no, I feel your pain on the struggles. And that's kind of the interesting thing of building your own TV show is that we don't hunt a lot of places that are guaranteed kills. And really, in my experience, when I was down at Double Play here in Athens, Ohio, at John Neese's place, it really wasn't as simple as people, I think, get that misnomer about. So, just for me to put a doe in the freezer this year and still be blessed enough to have good property, and I'm seeing deer, which was part of my problem the past couple of years. I mean, I had a good property, but I shared it with another hunter and just wasn't seeing the deer. I was seeing on camera and scrapes and stuff, but really never seeing them when I was in the stand. And I think that's part of what makes us a little more relatable to other big shows out there is that we deal with the same kind of crap that an everyday hunter would, you know.
yeah, no doubt. I mean, and I think we all grew up wanting to be in the position that we're in because of our predecessors and the godfathers of hunting and godmothers and everything else. But those people and still have so much land and so much access, whether it was family property handed down from generation to generation, they expanded, or they owned businesses where they were outdoor people and they just accrued all this property. But we get spoiled watching those types of videos because even though it is all natural, it's low fenced, it's fair chase, it's all open, it's like fish in a barrel because they have the property to keep the animals there.
Right.
They are essentially, the people that taught us how to food plot and not just grow crops for harvesting for general consumption of people, but to also replenish the nutrients in the ground with different plants. And therefore you're feeding the wildlife, which therefore you harvest. And again, the cycle of life continues and you provide for your family. And but we forget sometimes that when it's our turn to go out there and we want to be the pro staffer and we want to be on film, it's like, oh, well, why am I not seeing anything? This sucks. Like it's not like that when I watch the other shows.
Yeah, they've got like 40 does and a bunch of bucks that you shoot all day long, and that's
Yeah.
disrespect, like you said, to the folks that have been doing this since the 90s, and even the late 80s. I got nothing but love for those shows. I look up to it, and I definitely, it's not, they put the work in for sure, but it's a different beast in
Oh yeah.
that sense. But real quick, before we get to our line of questioning, I'm so glad to have you on. I've got to know you for about over a year now. We got to hang out in Iowa at the Price of Greatness Foundation event, which is an awesome foundation. For those who are watching this, you should definitely go check them out. But we want to thank everybody who's watching. We want to thank all our sponsors, Vortex Optics, Artesian Wells here in Jerome, Michigan. So they handle auto repair and towing. Old Indian Tricks, who specialize in scents, and then my buddy and your buddy, actually, probably more than mine, John Neese over at Double Play Hunting Preserve in Athens, Ohio, for giving me a hunt that, ideally for me, that I will always remember, and I can't wait to get my ram back from the taxidermist, which that was a pretty penny.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, but I think the other thing was that I had my daughter with me, so she got to be a part of that whole experience, and it was just me and her, and then me and her and John, and she really doesn't even know who. I mean, she's 7. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't follow baseball, so she doesn't know that she's hanging out with someone who's been on TV, and she probably would have thought that was really cool, but at the end of the day, it was the hunt and spending the time together. So, we want to thank all our sponsors for all that they do and give them a shout out, obviously, not only just in our episodes, but on our podcast as well. And with that said, I noticed you have a special shirt on, Tim, that I'm really digging. Why don't you drop a little wisdom dime on me, if you would? What's that all about?
So I know you, me, and Kyle had been in a little private chat for a couple months now, and trying to find out ways to help put Luck of the Draw out there to different genres and different regions of the country. And what better way than to try and merchandise our logo and merchandise our brand? And I know, we all kind of have our own way of getting stuff done. And my daughter, a couple of years ago, she bought a small heat press off of Amazon, and she's got all the vinyl and the Cricut. And so when I asked for you to send me the picture of the logo, she put it on her computer and digitalized it and put it all through her Cricut. And so this is actually vinyl, and it's not probably showing off real nice, but it's actually black and silver camo.
Nice.
And it's kind of got a reflective foil type color to it. So we made a couple different shirts for a test run for her and I. And so this one is just it's a long sleeve white shirt from Wally World. And I wanted to do the logo that we picked with the buck, and it says LOTD. And then on the back.
Oh, there's more. Nice.
The back's got the whole thing with the Luck of the Draw at the bottom of it. So
that's dope.
I did a couple that way, and then I took a dark green and I put the Hunter orange, and I put the logo that's on the back of this. It's just on the front.
Okay.
So
kudos to you.
We're gonna try and make a couple of those. We're gonna try and put the logo. She's got a couple of knit hats, like winter ski hats. We're gonna try and do that and get those done. And we're actually coming up to Michigan for Christmas.
Nice.
So we'll be there for 3 days, in and out. But we're going to come up and see my wife's family and some of our nieces and nephews up there. So there might be a hat coming your way, at least, if nothing else.
Sweet. I think it looks great. One thing is being the original brainhead of the show is that, I feel like logos are important for identity. And when we started the show, we were called Adrenaline Outdoors. Well, that became kind of a conflict because apparently there's another show out there that was kind of similar in name, which, we changed it to Luck of the Draw. And the reason behind that is because too many times, we get stuck in a position. We were stuck in a position today when we were hunting where it just happened that way, and that's just how it goes, and that's just the luck of the draw. That's the straw you pull. And so what more truthful name than the luck of the draw? Because that's just how it goes in hunting sometimes. Sometimes you see, a ton of deer, and sometimes you go the whole season and may see, enough that you can count on one hand. And, we had a bit of a card design logo, and although it was cool, I wanted something a little sleeker, and you and Kyle and I, spent, like you said, pretty much the summer trying to come up with something a little more simplistic but unique. And you're rocking the newest logo that we have, and I love it. I think it looks great, and I know I talked with Kyle, and we're going to get some test runs on cost and things so we can, post up those on our Facebook and Instagram and all those outlets, so people who may want to support us as friends and family and followers can rock it. And even if they don't know much about the show, it's a killer logo, and I like what she did.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of compliments. I've worn my other ones around, or at least the kind of like the heather gray with the white logo, and I've worn it around town, and people are like, "Oh man, that's a sweet logo. What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's actually a hunting company. Check us out. Give them the Instagram and the Facebook and all that." And I have shirts and hats from our original logo, which I really liked because it brought the concept of Luck of the Draw in the process of having cards in a hand or in the logo, as if you were holding your hand. This is the hand you're dealt, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I love the metaphoric combination of that in the name of the show and the company. But from my daughter's standpoint, it was so hard to do stuff like this because it had to be printed because there's so many colors and there's so many things going on. It made it difficult to be able to branch out to different things like we're doing here. Like you could do, like I said, I've got black and silver foil. You could do different colors. I mean, you could do anything because
Right.
the logo is so easy to just cut out and press onto something. It's way simpler. But I think both logos had a place, but this just definitely opens up the spectrum for us and for the public to want to buy something that looks good as well as stands out for what it's supposed to.
Yeah, yeah, and I think with all shops and all businesses, there's evolution, and we kind of evolved from our very first to the one that you were referencing with the cards. We were trying to find a way to integrate kind of what you have on your shirt on a new card, but we couldn't quite find a designer who could see the vision that we were trying to produce.
Right.
We wanted something similar to the juries in the sense that by that DOD, right? That's the Drury Brothers, and it's simple and it's sleek, and that's what we wanted, something simple, sleek, and start to brand that. And kudos to you and your daughter for doing a great job on that. So when Kyle and I talked on our first episode, we talked a little bit about how we met, how the show got started, and then some of our most memorable hunts. Obviously, I've already talked about that, but for the folks who are watching this, friends and family and followers, and me myself, because we really haven't talked about that a whole lot. I'd love to hear how you got into hunting, and maybe your most memorable hunt, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you and I got connected in the first place. That sound okay?
Yeah, it sounds great. So, growing up in Western New York, it's pretty similar to being in Michigan, where we lived for 12 years, and where you are now. We had kind of the rolling hills and some farm country, but our hunting ground, as far as my saying it was my two uncles and my grandfather. They owned about 16 acres on a hillside. Well, it's kind of a small mountain, but we consider mountain hunting in Western New York. So we were kind of in the foothills of the the Appalachians around Letchworth State Park, which is like considered the Grand Canyon to the east, and great hunting, big animals, big deer. I mean, you're up north, so they're just big.
Yeah.
So I actually got into it more after my dad died. My two uncles kind of were there for me, and I want to go to the cabin. I want to go to the cabin. So then I just started falling in love with that rustic kind of mountain life and being outdoors. And again, I was cold all the time, and I hate being cold. So I was the guy that had to be in the stand closest to the cabin, because I could go in early, put fire back on the fireplace, and keep the heat up, while the rest of them sit out there until 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and then we come in and grandpa makes breakfast or brunch or what have you. So that's kind of how it got started. I didn't shoot or kill my first year until I was 21 years old.
How
So
old
I shot a doe.
How old were you when you started with your uncle and your grandpa?
I mean, probably really 19, okay. 20.
Okay.
I was a late bloomer when it comes to, being out there in the woods and hunting big game. I mean, I'd gone fishing, I'd shot rabbits and squirrels and that kind of stuff, but, nothing like I'm top of the food chain, and I'm going out there and I'm trying to outsmart an animal that is, pretty wily and intelligent in its surroundings, and understands that when one branch doesn't look the same after 6 months, something's not right. You're like, how does an animal of that nature have that much intelligence, understand that a stick or a branch is changed and their whole alert system is on high? So that's kind of how it started out. And to kind of come full circle, after I had been in the big leagues for a couple of years, my most memorable hunt to date is I was able to pay the travel, the lodging, the outfitter, and I took my two uncles and we went to outside Edmonton, Alberta. It's called Pigeon Lake, and we went moose hunting.
Oh,
and we all got a moose.
That's awesome.
Various sizes. My uncle, who we call the Great White Hunter of the family, he's the oldest. uncle and had been hunting the longest, and have always. I mean, he used to hunt in tree stands where it was a lock-on platform, and he used a tree. There was no seat. He would stand against the tree and balance his weight off one foot and the other every so often. He never sat down. Like he was that hardcore. And so he got one that we said that he was able to cut the skull plate off, and he could take the paddles that were there because it was essentially a yearling or a button buck moose. I mean, we make a joke that he has a salad fork and spoon, for moose paddles. I got the medium sized moose, which it measured 31 inches, so he's got some palmation and some stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a firm believer in things happen for a reason. And my youngest uncle of my mom's kin, he ended up developing some health issues about a decade later from this hunt. So he doesn't get to hunt very much anymore. He lives down in Florida where the weather's warmer. Just cold takes a toll on his body. But he the day before the last day of our 6-day hunt, he was on point and sitting in a truck waiting for the moose to cross one fence to be on property that we could hunt, or we were cleared to hunt. And son of a gun, the cow got up, jumped over the fence. He followed, and they ensued on a 1-hour trek. And he shot what is considered, as far as I know, to this day, this was almost 20 years ago, a 51-inch bull moose, full bullwinkle, 51-inch. I mean, paddles, curve, everything. And it was the outfitter record, at least for the first 10, 12 years after we were there. I don't know if it still is, but it was enormous. I mean, they had to bring it in on a tractor flatbed. This thing was so big. I mean, it was a 2,000-pound animal.
Sure. No,
that was pretty neat.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I kind of have my bucket list of animals. For some reason, gators is like number one because I think it's probably most affordable. But then it's like black bear or any kind of bear. But I feel like getting my feet wet, black bear is probably a good place to start. And then looking into going out west to Colorado or Montana and maybe getting into some elk or
right.
Or figure out connections. We have some connections I was just telling you about before we started filming up in Alaska. So, I mean, I know there's big moose, there's big black bears up there, there's big brown bears. So, no, that's awesome that you were able to do that and do it with family. And that's, like you said, that's a memorable hunt. And like I was telling Kyle, I got started with my uncle just simply by going with him to 3D shoots. He was really big with the Fish and Game, and he was kind of my mentor. So it's cool to see. And once again, I reiterate back to the first episode how much family is a part of who we are. I mean, you hinted at your MLB career, but for those of our followers and fans who don't quite know, maybe are a little bit younger. I'm not trying to date you, right? I'm not trying to date you, but for some folks who aren't hardcore baseball fans, would you give us a little background on your baseball career? Just where you started, where you finished, how many years, anything like that can help people kind of figure out who you are as a former athlete.
Sure. So I'm originally from Rochester, New York, which is an hour east of Buffalo, or give or take. So go Bills. I know we're not having a great year right now, so hopefully tomorrow we'll beat the Chiefs and continue our trek to try and make the playoffs. But so really was a nobody athletically. I was very, very gifted with being athletic. I could play multiple sports, usually pretty well. But baseball was just my love. And I knew from a very early age that was what I wanted to be. I mean, people want to be astronauts, doctors, lawyers, nurses, teachers. Like I wanted to be a baseball player. And unfortunately, I wasn't good enough to hit in the major league, so I couldn't get that Otani money that he got today. Um, but I was able to throw really hard. So I was drafted as a pitcher, pitched 16 years professionally, parts of 8 different years in the major leagues with 5 different teams. Topped out at 100 miles an hour. I played in South Korea. I played in Mexico, played in Venezuela. So it gave me the opportunity to travel a lot, meet a lot of interesting people, go to a lot of interesting places that I, would never think I'd get to go to. And, yeah, so I coached for 5 years after I was done playing. I'm actively looking to try and get back into coaching. So hopefully I'll get some phone calls coming up here in the next couple of weeks. The winter meetings were just here in Nashville, and I went to those for 2 days and met a lot of former people I knew and hadn't seen in a long time. So, just a lot with hunting, being in the right place at the right time and building those relationships and being there to kind of reciprocate when the opportunities arise. It's what helps you grow, and it's what helps you become, better person, better people.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And very cool one that, you were at the winter meetings. I think we talked a little bit while you were there. I just texted you and you mentioned you were there. For our fans who don't know, I'm an Illinois native, so I'm a diehard Cubs fan. You know that. I'm a baseball lover, and I know you had my back in some certain instances that we won't get into on this episode. All right, for the sake of my pride. But it's been awesome to get to know you guys and really break down the. People get that thought that anybody who's been on television or played a professional sport, they're arrogant and they're, selfish people. But, in my experience with working with you and Heath and Kyle, it's really not been the case. You guys are just dudes that got to do what you love to do and provide for your family, and it opened up opportunities. And, it's been a fun ride so far. And going back to that Shohei money, $700 million. Could you imagine? Good Lord.
I mean, I guess he beat Mahomes by 200 million. So I guess he's the best athlete in the face of the earth, right?
Yeah, unfortunately for us Chicago fans, he picked the wrong color blue, but whatever.
Yeah, you only got to face him. You only got to face him a couple times a year.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the Cubs will have a decent season. They were close this year. We won't go there.
Yeah. They were closer than the Yankees, so it's all right.
Yeah. So now one question I have, if we can kind of veer off quickly before we move on to our next question. You said you were drafted. Now, did you go straight out of high school, or did you do some get your degree and then go to the professional level after, during the college years?
Yeah, no. So I was drafted out of my freshman year out of junior college in Rochester. I went to a local 2-year community college. Blossomed from the spring of my senior year in high school to the spring of my freshman year. Gained about 5-6 miles an hour on my fastball, and I was drafted. So kind of happened quick. And then, went back to school for my second year, although I did not finish and get my 2-year degree even before signing, but I decided to turn pro, and I've never gone back, and which is a regret now, because going on 46 in February here in a couple months, and I'm currently looking for an employment opportunity. A lot of it hurts because I didn't get my degree. So to any of you athletes and student athletes that are listening to this show and this podcast and follow us, take it from me right now. As much as you may not like school, get your degree in something, even if it's a 2-year degree, because later on in life, it's something that you can really rely on, and it's going to help you out.
No, I'll toast to that. I'll be 32 on the 19th of this month. And just went back to college, did an accelerated bachelor's program. I loved film, ended up, wanted to really put a credential behind my name to help differentiate me as a filmmaker and help the show grow in my skills. And so, at 29, I went back to college and did a 3-year bachelor program through the Los Angeles Film School. So it's never too late. But like you said, I mean, it's easy to get tunnel vision, I'm sure, as an athlete when you're like, you can see that door, that step into doing what you've always dreamed of doing, and not want to worry about the rest because the opportunity is there. But no, I appreciate that little nugget of wisdom to all our followers who are in that position.
Sure, sure. Well, the thing is even me, like I was like, oh, I'll always be able to go back. I'll be able to go back, and it only helped the issue because we've gained so many different advances in technology with being able to do classes online. You don't have to go to a brick and mortar building and do all that stuff, and then then it just becomes lazy because it's like, oh, I can just go, and then life happens. You have kids, you get married, you move, continue to try and find ways to continue playing because you don't want to give up that lifestyle or that thrill of competition. And so while you're young and have the ambition, and if you're not young and you still have the ambition, for anybody, go do it. Find a way to get it done.
Yeah, I'll echo that sentiment. Like I told Kyle, if somebody would have told me that I'd be where we're at, and we're still in our infancy stages as a TV show, and obviously just starting out as a podcast, but if you would have told me that I would be where I'm at, and some people may not look at it as an accomplishment, but I'm very proud of where we're at. We're on 2 TV networks, which was my 5-year plan goal, which we're just going to be entering year 5 of being a show. Like you said, you can't quit your dreams. Sometimes you got to adjust, how you approach it, right? Like you may not be physically able to play anymore, but you love the game still. So if you could be a coach or involved in that capacity, I mean, keep striving for it, man. I've got you in my thoughts. Hopefully Craig, that new coach down there in the city, will give you a call.
Well, he helped the Brewers be competitive for a while, so he's in the same division. He knows how that division plays.
Yeah. Now, the fans who've watched episode 1 know, but just a quick recap if you're just getting to know the Luck of the Draw Hunting podcast and stumbled upon this episode on our YouTube channel. I started this back in 2019 with a Sony Handycam and just an idea. I was doing some film work for a couple other local guys. Unfortunately, just wasn't having the momentum I needed to continue to grow as a independent filmmaker, and also that help them grow as well. So I wanted to start my own thing, and long story short, got connected to a guy who knew a guy who owned an outfitter who knew Kyle, and then Kyle, him and I got connected, and a couple years in, I think it was about. Would you say it was October that we linked up?
Yeah, I think it was right around the beginning of November.
Okay, that's what I was thinking too. So right about that time, Kyle had mentioned Heath, which is one of our field staff members, and that he wanted to bring him on. Was a good guy, shot a lot of deer, played some ball. And, me being the fanboy that I am, right? Like Kyle called it as it is, and I'm going to just own it, right? I was like, hey, if I can get another MLB guy on the team, for sure, man. Like, absolutely. Right. And so we added Heath, and a few days later, I made the announcement post. And I had talked to you a little bit before, but obviously, and please don't take this the wrong way, but when you were playing, I was probably like a teen or younger, because I remember living in Illinois watching Kyle play, and I moved from there when I was about 12. So, right, like, not to date you.
Yeah.
I wasn't as familiar with your name as I was with Kyle's because Kyle was a Cub.
Oh, sure.
Kyle was a Cub.
Right.
If he wasn't a Cub, I probably wouldn't have been as excited to be working with a former Cub.
Sure.
But you and I had talked a little bit through our Luck of the Draw Facebook page, which we do interact with for all you fans and followers. Like, if you have questions or you want to talk with some of these guys and ask questions, or maybe suggest questions for our next podcast episodes, please do that. But we had talked briefly before, and then you had mentioned that, hey, my buddy Heath is, he just got announced that he's going to be one of your field staff members. How do I get involved? I remember that. And, tell me first off, if you would, how you heard of us, and then like, what drove you to want to reach out? I mean, what was it that you're like, I want to be a part of something bigger than just going out and, I love to hunt and I want to add more dynamic to it. What was it?
Yeah, so I'm always searching the web for different hunting opportunities or connections or intelligence or knowledge. And I'd seen through Twitter, Kyle had posted something about luck of the draw that had just kind of caught my eye, and I kind of dismissed it and didn't think about it at first. I'm like, oh, gotta be something with baseball. Kyle's into hunting or he's into lifting and he's into baseball. Like I didn't know he was a hunter. I'm like, I didn't know what luck of the draw was, and so I just kind of dismissed it. And then I saw it again, and this was all probably about mid-September, late September.
Okay.
And then I finally started seeing some things. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna check this out. So then I found you guys on Facebook, and I started kind of messaging, the page to see, if there was any, interaction or anything like that. Because I've talked to Mark Drury numbers of times.
Nice.
We have mutual interest, obviously, with the Cardinals and stuff like that. And then there were other hunting companies that I was a pro staffer on that didn't work out. And then I was kind of like, well, you can be on our pro staff, but we're not going to advertise you until, we get bigger or you start putting some stuff on film, whatever. And it just kind of never worked out. And it'd been quite a few years since the last one had happened. And so then, we kind of coordinated and reciprocated on Facebook a couple of times, just about random stuff. And then I'd seen the announcement on Heath, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This clown is going to be a pro staff for a hunting company. And I'm like, if he can get in there, I have got to figure out what is going on. So then I reached out, and I was like, oh, I entered one of the Vortex giveaways that Kyle was doing for binoculars.
Yeah.
And so then I seen the Heath thing about a week later, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And so then I was like, hey, if you guys are looking to add people, like, Heath and I have hunted handfuls of times. We've been to Illinois. We've been to his family's place in southern Indiana. We've, Georgia when he lived there. So we've done a couple different things together. He took my son out and got him a turkey in Georgia. When I was getting ready to start the season in Rome in a minor league season, he took Brennan out early one morning. So there's familiarity there, and I was like, I got to figure out if this is another opportunity, because if Heath's going to be involved, I know him and I are together a lot, when it comes to being outdoors, or at least we had been in the past. So obviously life gets in the way and different things take us different places, and sometimes you go a year or two or three without getting to be around the people you're normally used to.
Yeah.
And then but yeah, just basically, folks, just by like Zach said, just by shooting a message and taking a chance, and we do interact. And I'll tell you guys right now, like I'm an admin on the Facebook page, so if you have a question for me specifically, when you post it on there, I'll log in and I'll chat with you. I'll respond to you. I'll give you any insight or input or information that you're looking for that might help out. So because I did it, here I am sitting here with Zach, and we're talking to you and welcoming any input, questions, or fandom that you guys can put out there for us.
Yeah, no, and just to be candid with you, you've been one of my favorite non-personal additions to our pro staff unit. I mean, you're smart, you've got great ideas. I can tell you're passionate about hunting. You're passionate about seeing us grow, and obviously there's going to be younger generations that don't know who you are as an athlete. And yes, I understand that sometimes baseball itself as a sport doesn't correlate to hunting, but in my limited experience of working with former athletes, the dedication, the drive, the hustle, and the passion that they had for baseball, I see it in hunting. And I talked with one of the former Blue Jays pitchers on Instagram earlier this year. He's an avid outdoorsman, and it seems to be one of those. It doesn't matter what color you are, what socioeconomic class you're in, what religion you believe in. It is the one thing that can bring us all together as a people under the banner of camouflage, right? And passion. And so it's been great to have you, and I'm glad that it all worked out. Um, you've been an awesome addition to the team, man. And so, with that
I
said,
appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. It's 100% heartfelt. With that said, though, you dropped a little truth bomb on me before we decided to start filming the episode about what you have some plans for the end of 2023, and then maybe some plans moving into 2024. You want to drop those exclusively on this episode of our podcast so we know who's watching and who's not.
Yeah, so I was actually we got on our podcast here 30 minutes later, so give or take, because I was on the phone with a very close personal friend who's essentially like my older brother that I never had, and he lives out in a town called Canadian, Texas, which is up in the Panhandle, about 40 minutes west of the Oklahoma-Texas border, on the part of the border that goes north and south. On that east side of the Panhandle of Texas. And so we've been in talks, and I know I've talked to you, I've talked to the rest of our crew. We're always trying to find a big enough piece of property and or a big enough opportunity to, at some point in the near future, year or two, whatever future that looks like, to try and get a staff outing somewhere where we can just all be together. We can be isolated. We can get camera guys associated with staff guys. We can get staff guys associated with how to run a camera better, and just have a good time in the outdoors, and maybe have a chance to shoot stuff we don't normally get a chance to shoot, or just have freedom to do whatever it is we want. And that is coming together and coming to fruition as far as finding that property. Now it's just a matter of trying to get everybody there, because even though the property is centrally located in the country, we are all east of the Mississippi. So it's, the logistics of traveling always seems to get in the way. But my son Brennan and I are leaving two days after Christmas, maybe 3 days after Christmas, after we get back from Michigan. And we're driving out to Canadian, and we are going to take a shot at getting him his first big mega whitetail buck wall hanger. So I will be filming him first. He is going to be the shooter, and I will be the cameraman, camera dude, as Uncle Ted would say. I've shot some really nice whitetail in my young hunting career, and I aspire to try and be one of those people that gets a booner with one weapon or another, or both. But it's time. I find myself having more enjoyment behind the camera of my daughter and my son hunting. So he's going to go first, and then I will get an opportunity. But not only with whitetail, with being out there in the great state of Texas that has everything under the sun just about you can imagine. They have wild pigs, they have bobcats, they have beaver, they have porcupine. They have these things called aoudad sheep, which are like a Middle Eastern type rocky sheep type looking thing. They're really cool. If anybody wants to look them up on Google, it's spelled AOUDAD, aoudad sheep, and they're pretty cool. The rams have really long curl horns, and they've got these super long chaps that start like in the middle of their chest and go down the front of their legs. So they're pretty unique looking sheep, not something that a lot of people probably go out of their way to get, but they run wild out there. So there's actually no season for them. And because there's no season, you don't need a license. So you can just see them and shoot them. And That's one of the best things about going to Texas is you never know what you're going to be able to run into. And if we're driving a truck and it's on property that we have access to, it'll be jumping out, get the camera rolling, and you'll see some spot and stock stuff, hopefully, or you'll see some standardized stuff where we're sitting in the blind, kind of enjoying ourselves. And it is all fair game. It's all free range. It's all wide open. And then doing that, and you'll see, with some of the footage, the land can get pretty barren at times, so you do have to supplemental feed, and there will be some supplemental feeders out there and stuff like that to help keep the animals alive and keep them thriving and reproducing. But none of it is fenced in, other than the 4-foot high fences that have been there since the Wild West days. So it's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. We talked earlier about some of the bucket list hunts I have. And ever since going down to double play, down at John Neese's place, it kind of opened up a door for me on like wanting to shoot more rams. There's just such a cool creature. And, the Corsican, to me, I've obviously done my homework on the Audads because we've talked about trying to collaborate, making plans for the following year to collaborate to get down there together. And so I wanted to know what I was shooting, and, the lineage between the two, as far as the curl in their horns. Obviously all rams have some form of curl, but they seem pretty similar in some respects. But I'm rooting for you guys. When we were down in, or up in, or whatever you want to call it, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, for the Rise to Greatness Foundation event, I got to hang out with your son and you and your wife and Kyle and Stone, his son. And, Brennan's just such a great kid. I can see so much drive and passion in him. And so I'm really, really rooting for you guys. Obviously, we want footage for the show, but at the same time, I mean, I spent almost the entire day today working in the woods to try and get my daughter her first buck at 7 years old. I mean, I was over 18, I'll just put it like that, before I got my first opportunity, really, even to get a whitetail, of course. So I've been trying really hard this year to get her on, even if it's just a spike. Like, I know some people are against that, but hey, she's 7 years old, and if she can, continue to develop the love for being out there, and also teaches me some lessons as a parent on patience, because 7-year-olds are fidgety, man. They're always, I'm bored, I want a snack. Like, so you're just trying to I train myself to be as quiet and observant as possible, so I'm ready. And that's how kids function. But it just, like we talked about in episode 1, it just brings it all full circle. Family, doing what you love out in the outdoors, connecting with other people who love the sport, and just sharing that through film. That's why I decided to start this show, and why I went back to school to get my degree, was because everybody's got a story to tell. So if you can encourage other people and give information like you just gave about how Texas operates with some of their, for lack of better terms, I would say invasive species, right? Like audads are not, they're not natural. So
they just basically classify them as non-indigenous. So it's like, because they're not from there, and even though they're brought in, and Texas is one of the first states to have these high fence ranches. You look at the Wyo Ranch and the King Ranch, and you can go there and shoot elk and all these exotic deer that have been extinct, but they had a couple of one and they keep reproducing them. So they're still alive, but they're not in the wild. And, eventually, they get some severe storms down there in Texas, whether it's hurricanes or tornadoes or anything like that. I mean, fences break and natural disasters happen, and all of a sudden now these animals are wild. And it's like, once they get out there and they've established a foothold into the environment and the ecosystem, well, now they got to figure out, I mean, look at pigs. Pigs are wild all across the entire country. And, and I know 15 years ago, talking to people, they're like, oh, do you have pigs here? And they're like, no. Well, just wait 5 years and they'll be there. And it's like, well, they haven't been there yet. But, I think the sport of hunting, unfortunately, limits the amount of those types of invasive or non-indigenous animals to be harvested because people want the big ones and they want this instead of just. Fortunately for us as outdoors people who like the sport and the adventure, there's more of them out there for us to try and go get, and we don't have to have the handcuffs, so to speak, of license fees and seasons and stuff like that. But at the same time, if they're not controlled, they're just going to get so out of control that they could affect the ecosystem of another species of animal completely.
Yeah, yeah. I am, in Michigan terms, a troll, right? Because I'm south of the bridge. And then you have your Ubers or uppers, I don't know how they do it.
They're Ubers.
I'm not a Michigan resident, so you got to bear with me. Or Michigan.
I was an import too.
Yeah, there you go, import. I'm a Michigan import. But I've heard, and this is all hearsay, but I've heard a lot of folks talk about the same kind of problems, not just in Michigan, but in some other states with the integration of wolves back into their ecosystem there and how it affects things. And I've even heard black bears becoming a problem, and I can't remember what states, but it just goes back to the point of we as outdoorsmen and women are helping practice conservation and also be there for the farmers who help drive food into the stores, which helps cut costs and all those things. It's a collective unspoken agreement, for lack of better terms.
Right.
So good luck when you go, and want to thank you again for spending some time with me on this Saturday evening, time away from the missus and from the family, and just hanging out for a little while so we can talk about who you are as an individual, a former athlete, a hunter, and obviously we'll talk more about your baseball stuff and Kyle's and Heath's, but we wanted to really get to know you guys as individual people, as family men, and as outdoorsmen, and like I've said before, hopefully we'll be able to get some guest athletes on, not to name drop too much, because I think this will probably be one of the episodes Kyle may want to shoot. I'm going to try and convince him to let me be involved in some capacity, but we've got Dusty Baker, former Cubs coach, former Astros coach, who surprisingly to me is a big outdoorsman, which is pretty cool. And
he's got some wine too, I hear.
Good man. And when we were in Iowa, I got to know John Buck, who played for, was it the Indians or the Guardians?
He played for the Guardians and the Royals and the Astros. Well, I mean, he came up with the Astros when I was in the big leagues there, a little bit ahead of them. But John's a close personal friend, and he's one of the top class act people that I've ever gotten to know.
Yeah, he was a very fun and very nice guy to get to know, but he's also a big outdoorsman from what I gather. And I know he's kind of doing, from when him and I talked a little bit, he sounds like he might be doing his own thing with some guys out his way where he lives. But, hopefully, long story short, to summarize, hopefully we can get some more athletes who share the same passion, former and maybe even current if we get lucky enough. And then some DNR, some other industry related guys. I hope to get at least all of our sponsors on the podcast. So John Neese, Dan DeWitt, who owns Old Indian Tricks, who makes some great scent products. A rep from Vortex, and then Levi from Artesian Wells here in Jerome, Michigan. But wanted to thank you again for being with me tonight, hanging out. I know you're a busy man. You got a lot of stuff going on. I hope that you hear the calls that you want to hear back from those winter meetings. Very cool. Hopefully you get some luck like Shohei Ohtani did. I don't know if I'd call that luck.
Yeah. I'll sell my 10-year lifelong contract for $70.
Almost $1 billion contract's wild, but anyway, we're not there yet. So thanks again, Tim.
Hi, Zach.
I appreciate your time, man. And for those of you who don't know Tim well, He goes by the nickname Big Red, correct?
Big Red.
All right. Now, obviously, you're like me. We're follically challenged is the term I like to use. So how did you get that name? That'll be the last thing.
Well, I've got the red facial hair
Okay.
with my goatee that I was able to grow full since I was like 16.
Okay.
And then I do have some Irish and Scottish background in my lineage.
Okay.
But part of it is obviously the first three letters of my last name are red. And other part of it was having that Irish and Scottish lineage. You know, you can become kind of a red blank, and so I tended to lean towards the latter than the prior. So I got the nickname Big Red because basically I was just a big red blank.
Did you get that from a teammate or from a family member? Like how long did
It was not so much a teammate as much as probably the clubhouse in general.
it was unanimous? Unanimous.
Yes, very unanimous. But something that stuck or stood or stuck or however you want to say it. The other one I had very early on in high school and junior college was actually Red Dog, and then that beer came out. So to avoid being
Couldn't do
sued,
that.
which I should have sued them for copyright infringement.
There you go.
I don't go by that very often. So if I'm back home in Rochester and there's about 6 people that probably call me Red Dog, it's I don't hear that one very often. But when I'm back home and someone's around and they yell it, I'm very eager to snap my neck around because it's probably somebody I haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully one day all the staff, including myself, will have a good nickname like that. I mean, those are the ones that you don't make for yourself that kind of
Yeah.
get thrust upon you that have stuck for decades. So, Big
Oh
Red,
yeah. Yep, for sure.
thank you, my friend, for hanging out with me.
Absolutely.
Good to see this podcast continue to get material out and grow and hang out with cool guys. And good luck the rest of the season, whether you're in Tennessee or Texas or who knows, maybe we can link up for a day and do an evening hunt or something here in Michigan. So
Sure.
the world
Sounds
is
good, Zach.
funny. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll be in touch soon. Thank you, everybody, for
All right, buddy. You too.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for watching episode 2 of the Luck of the Draw Hunting Podcast. I'm Zach, and this is Big Red, and we will see you on the next episode. Take care. Cool. Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look